Here in the ESPN studios, I'm Randy Scott. She is Sue Bird. One of us is a two-time WNBA champ. What jumps out to you from the first half?
Just the pace of the game. Both teams got off to a hot start, which I think favors Atlanta, but we'll see.
Atlanta has the lead. Back to Pam and Carolyn in the ATL. Well, it's quiet by Angel McCaughtry's standards. Only 8 points in the first half, but what matters is that score. Atlanta with a 2-point lead on the defending champions to open up the Eastern Conference Finals. This is how even these two teams have been through 2 quarters of play. Indiana just 2 points down. The turnover battle, relatively equal. Points in the paint, slight nod to Indiana. Tamika Catchings, at least star power-wise, with 12. Arminty Harrington with 13. Well, she's in her 12th season, every single one of them with Seattle. She's a 2-time WNBA champion, 5-time All-Star, 3-time Olympic gold medalist. And she's blushing right now because she's all kinds of humble. She joins us here on the State Farm Halftime Report. She's Sue Bird. Great to have you with us.
Thank you.
How you feeling? How's the knee?
Everything's great.
Yeah, all systems go?
Yep.
Well, it should be. You're going to be in Las Vegas next week. Teeing up for the national team. Let's talk about this first half that we've seen. A couple of stars that you're familiar with, certainly Angel with the Dream. How did the pace favor Atlanta early on?
Well, they did. Both teams got off to a hot start, but Atlanta's a team that likes to create possessions. They want as many possessions as possible, offensive rebounding, creating turnovers, and pretty much just running it down your throat. And that's what they did. They did that early. They did it often. But you did see Indiana do a good job of kind of keeping it close. So I'm sure they're happy about that. But like I said, Atlanta is a team that can really just create. They create in very unique ways because they have such athletes, and it's tough to contain.
Atlanta actually shooting a better percent, over 50 than they did in the first round against Washington. Kind of ugly there. Tamika Catchings, 12 points in the first quarter, 0 points in the second. What has Atlanta done to limit her?
I'm sure they talked about it, you know, and Tamika is such a tough player to play against because she can hurt you in so many different ways. Hitting threes, going by you, creating, and I think she did a great job to get her team going. And now they need to lift her up a little bit. But we'll see more of her in the second half, no doubt about it.
So no doubt that Tamika's going to do her thing. Here's her shot chart from the first half. First quarter, we should say. That's where all those gold balls come from because that's where she did her damage. Looking ahead now to the second half, we heard Catchings say that they're right where they want to be. You buy that? You buy what she's selling there?
I do. I think when you're the road team, a 2-point game at halftime, when you know you probably didn't do your best, you're happy with that.
Okay, we're not going to ask you to do the impression, but what has Lynn Dunn telling her team in the locker room there? Go ahead if you want to. You played for her.
She's talking about turnovers. She's talking about their defense. This is a team that wants the game to be in the 60s, and obviously that's not happening right now. So she's definitely talking about defense and turnovers.
All right, defense, turnovers, offense, and we will see plenty of offense in the second game of our WNBA playoff doubleheader. When we come back, yes, Diana Taurasi and the Mercury in Minneapolis to tangle with the Lynx. Sue's going to break that down as we come back. First quarter. Hey, speaking of scoring, we're looking at Lindsay Whalen, your 4-time WNBA All-Star. She and the Lynx looking to roll through and on the Mercury as they have throughout this season. Here's how both teams got to this point. Phoenix taking care of Los Angeles in dramatic fashion as well, winning both games on the road. So a road test, nothing new for them. Minnesota took care of Seattle. And then you have Atlanta over Washington and Indiana taking care of the top seed in the East. But looking ahead now to the second half of our playoff doubleheader, Phoenix, Minnesota, Holly Rowe caught up with Mercury forward Candice Dupree.
Well, Candice Dupree, you guys have not found the magic way to beat Minnesota this season. What has to be different for your team tonight?
Defense and boxing out. It's kind of similar to last series against LA, except I think this team's going to be a lot more physical. Try and come out and be aggressive early on, so we have to match that.
What is it? Everybody keeps saying, well, this team is different. We've got a new coach, a new defensive intensity. But what do you sense is different with your team that will be different?
You know, I feel like there's a sense of urgency with us right now. People want to win. It's the second round of the playoffs. Like you've already said, you know, new coach, we're playing defense now. So, you know, the energy and effort is there. We just have to come out and be extremely aggressive against Minnesota.
And last question for me, they've got so many people who can score. Defensively, how do you deal with a team like that?
You got to get in their space, be a little more physical with them. You can't just let them catch it in the spots they want to catch it in. But, you know, I think it's going to be the battle of who can get who out of their offensive sets. So we'll see.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Defense and rebounding, neither of which has been there for Phoenix, at least in the regular season against Minnesota. They've gone 0-5 against the Lynx, and these games have not been close. Outscoring Phoenix has Minnesota by 16 points, out-rebounding them by 5 rebounds per game. And we're back in here with Sue Bird, back here in studio, and you're nodding along to the defense and rebounding sort of thing that we heard from Candace. Is she right? Is that how you slow down Minnesota?
I think it's part of it. It's not easy to slow down Minnesota. They have so many weapons. They're very smart. They play very well together. You can't make mistakes. You can't turn the ball over. You can't forget a play. You can't relax. You just can't. They take advantage of it every single time. And a part of that is rebounding. They have to take care of the boards. Phoenix does. All
right, so scoring from Minnesota, there's certainly a size advantage, you could say, for Phoenix. Yeah. How does one cancel the other out? Who has the advantage there?
I don't know. That's why you play the game, to be honest. You know, this is a situation where Phoenix, they have a lot to deal with players like Maya Moore, Simone Augustus. They can fill it up. But so can Phoenix, and that's why I think what Candace Dupree said is really accurate. Take care of the boards, try to be physical, and whatever team takes the other out of their sets might be the winner.
Yeah. Phoenix not afraid to go on the road. As a matter of fact, they've won on the road, at least in this postseason, winning 2 in Los Angeles. Size-wise, Brittany Griner, a quiet 6 points there in the series clincher. Does she have to do more?
I think so. The one thing Minnesota doesn't have, per se, is a lot of size. And Griner could really do some damage if she can handle their physicality, which is not easy.
Now, how does this, 0-5 is Phoenix against Minnesota this season. It's actually 0 for their last 12. They lost 12 straight to Minnesota. How much does that creep into the psyche of a player?
It can. I also think it can motivate you. I'm big on law of averages, so something tells me Phoenix is probably going to get one, just because it's been so long.
Are we going to see it tonight?
I don't know. Tune in.
We'll see. There you go. There's your tease for the second half of our playoff doubleheader. We still have the second half from Atlanta forthcoming. Tamika Catchings looking to get off the schneid. Scoreless in the second quarter. Back to Atlanta when we come back. Coming up on the WNBA Halftime Report presented by State Farm, a dream performance for Tiffany Hayes for the dream. We'll get to that, but first half in this one, how has Minnesota been so successful?
All Lindsay Whalen. When she's that aggressive, she kind of sets the tone for everybody. Pretty impressive.
Point guard love for the point guard. Let's go back to Minneapolis to Ryan and Rebecca.
Welcome to the WNBA Halftime Report, presented by State Farm.
How about the performance from Lindsay Whalen? Started 5 for 5 from the floor. She's 7 for 10 in the first half alone. Leads all scorers with 14 points. Minnesota up huge on the cold shooting Phoenix Mercury. Are you serious? Shooting just a tick above 24% from the field. 0 for 9 from 3. And you can see just 4 made shots outside the paint. Part of a 23-point deficit for Phoenix. Welcome into the WNBA Halftime Report presented by State Farm, joined by 2-time WNBA champion, 5-time WNBA All-Star Sue Bird. Let's talk about Minnesota. It's been all Lynx, all Lindsay Whalen. What'd you like from the point guard?
Yeah, she's when she gets that aggressive driving to the hoop, there's really no stopping her. She's like a running back, When she picks up her speed and she's got momentum, not a lot of people can prevent her from getting to the basket. But she also does a great job of getting everybody else involved, so that's why she's tough to guard.
As a point guard, is there a small portion of you that's jealous of the weapons that she has? One of them, Maya Moore, kind of an underrated, if there is such a thing for Maya Moore's game. Her ability from 3 has been outstanding.
Yeah, I think she's actually proven herself pretty much, being able to hit those shots at the end of halves and things like that over virtually anybody. Brittany Griner, once she's kind of locked in that form, there's really no stopping her.
It's not that Phoenix is playing bad defense. It's just been great shooting from the Lynx. Here's Moore's shot over Brittany Griner, no less. Waning seconds when everybody in the building knew she was going to take a 3. If you're Phoenix now, is this insurmountable? I mean, what are you doing to keep your head from hanging in the locker room here?
It could be tough. I'm sure they're not pleased with how they played, but they're probably thinking, you know what, guys, it can't get worse. Let's just go out there and play loose. And I think when you're down 20-plus points, you kind of break it down. You're like, all right, by the fourth quarter, we want to be down 10. and then maybe halfway down 5. And you just kind of make it seem not as big as what it is.
Yeah, just kind of chip away, see what happens. Well, this is almost the exact opposite of what we had in the first half of our WNBA playoff doubleheader, where this thing was nip and tuck in the Eastern Conference Final. Tamika Catchings, the defending champion Fever, in Atlanta to tangle with the Dream, and at least early, Indiana hung around. Catchings with 12 points in the first quarter.
Yeah, Indiana, they did hang around. Their offensive game is what kept them in the game. Usually they're a defensive team, so it was interesting to see that, and I kind of thought it was going to play to Atlanta's favor as the game continued to go.
And you were not wrong. Here in the second half, Tiffany Hayes just took over. She had 23 points, 3 there. Fourth quarter also got it done attacking the rim. What'd you like from Hayes?
Just how aggressive she was when Angel went to the bench. Her three-pointers were going in, and that opened everything else up for her.
And it also opened things up for Angel McCoughtry. Struggled early, but finished with 10 of her 18 points in the second half as Atlanta takes game 1. And this is no surprise here. If you're a fan of the Fever, if you've been following them, they're 0-3 now in game 1s of the Eastern Conference Finals after sweeping the Eastern Conference semis, at least in their team history. 2009, remember they lost game 1. Fever went on to beat the Shock, but lost to the Mercury in the WNBA Finals. So let's get you to talk a little bit more about your fellow alum of UConn, Tiffany Hayes. If Atlanta can get Hayes going, and you've got this two-headed scoring machine of Hayes and McCoughtry, I mean, that's mighty tough for the Fever in game 2.
It is, especially with the way Atlanta plays. They create a lot of possessions. They like to get out and run, create turnovers, offensive. I mean, you name it, they want to do it on offense. So if you have 2 people, Tiffany, Angel, scoring the way they are from the outside, inside, I mean, it just opens things up for everybody, and it really will play to Atlanta's advantage.
What changes are you looking for from the Fever in game 2?
They have to take care of the ball. Point blank. You cannot let Atlanta get out in transition and get going. You have to take care of the ball, cut those turnovers down, and maybe things can be different.
Sounds like someone who's experienced many a Lynn Dunn huddle in her playing career. Still ahead on the WNBA halftime report presented by State Farm. We'll get you up to speed on what else is going on elsewhere. To tonight's game in Minneapolis, Minnesota Lynx Maya Moore was awarded the September WNBA Cares Community Assist Award presented by State Farm. For Moore's contributions to the community, it marks the first time that the 2-time All-Star and All-WNBA first-team member has received the honor, so congratulations to Maya Moore. It would appear that Maya Moore's on her way to a Game 1 win. Of note here, Candace Dupree for the Mercury, 0 points, as many points as you and I. What's been her issue in the first half?
Maybe the physicality of the game. That's something that coming in, I think Phoenix knew they were going to have to deal with and overcome, and so far, not so good. But she's not the only one. It just seems like Minnesota's out of sync for whatever reason.
And one thing you said first half, it seems like Minnesota's playing a little bit faster than Phoenix. And then right away, Rebecca Lobo said it's almost like they have an extra hop in their step. How has Maya Moore improved so far, not only from the regular season to the playoffs, but just from earlier in her career to now?
She's always been great. It's kind of hard to talk about somebody improving when they've just always been pretty impressive. She now is just older, a little more mature, knows how to handle certain situations, I think, a little better, and has really, if anything, become the go-to player on that team, which maybe she wasn't in her second year.
And it's easy to be frustrated by a finals loss. Instead, it looks like Maya Moore is motivated. That means issues for the rest of the Western Conference. Here she is, waiting seconds, the 3 over Brittany Griner. This one not close. We'll see if Phoenix can get back in it. Second half action when we come back.
Randy Scott and Sue Bird waiting by patiently in our studio.
All right, Ryan, thank you very much. Yeah, back here in our ESPN studios, both of us shaking our heads during that second half. We thought maybe the Mercury were going to make this a game, have something to build on moving forward to game 2. We didn't see it. How were the Lynx so dominant tonight? Everything was working.
They're just that good. That's really the best explanation. When they're playing that way, when they're kind of in sync with each other, it's just very difficult to stop them. And then on the other side, when you make mistakes against Minnesota, they make you pay. And just Phoenix made way too many mistakes.
And they get up and down the floor. We talked about it before the game, the size of the Mercury and the speed and the skill and the scoring of Minnesota. I think we saw which one won out. If you are Phoenix, what, if anything, can you take away moving to game 2?
You do have to learn from this game, but at the same time, you want to have a short memory. Regardless of what the score was, it's just a loss. It doesn't say what the score is. They don't get extra points for that. It's just one loss. And now you got to go home and get a win.
Diana Taurasi, even in defeat and even as this thing was getting out of hand, very colorful, a lot of personality. Her friend, Simone Augusta's little kiss there. I won't ask for your best Diana Taurasi story. You may not be able to say it on television, but where does that rank with some of the things you've seen from Diana through the years?
I've seen a lot. And I've never seen the kiss on the cheek. Yeah. I'm glad she added that to her repertoire. It was very impressive. I don't know if I want to see it again, but it was very entertaining.
Well, we had the Diana meter at the beginning of the game and showing where her emotions were. The kiss was not on there, so perhaps that's a new level of frustration for Diana. Game 1 of our WNBA conference final doubleheader. It was the defending champion Indiana Fever in Atlanta taking on the Dream. Tamika catching. She had 12 points in the first quarter alone. Indiana wasn't fazed about being on the road early.
No, not early. Unfortunately, that caught up to them. You know, they thrive off their defense, and even though they had some offensive things going their way in the beginning, like I said, it caught up to them, and Atlanta just did a great job.
Atlanta did have a 3-point lead at one point. Tiffany Hayes got that back with one shot. Hayes, 23 points to lead all scorers. Kind of surprisingly, we were all looking at Angel McCautry, and Angel did get hers, but Tiffany was tremendous.
Yeah, sometimes you need that X factor. You know who your best players are. Let's face it, in the playoffs, everybody knows who your players are. They know your plays. They know everything. So sometimes you need somebody to step in.
A lot of familiarity. The Dream improved to 4-1 against the defending champions this season, if you count regular season as well. Doubleheader on Sunday. Game 2's must-wins for the home team. You got the Fever and Dream at 3, and you've got the Mercury and the Lynx at 5 Eastern. For Sue Bird, I'm Randy Scott. Keith Olbermann is next.